Hello and welcome to Purple POV, the podcast that helps you connect the dots between brave and bold communication strategies and achieving your growth ambitions. So today, in the second episode of Purple POV, we're going to be exploring a topic that many brands see value in, but also feel quite apprehensive about. We're going to be delving into how to amplify your brand via influencer marketing. For those of you that aren't aware, we have just published a new white paper on exactly this topic. So if you want to delve deeper into the subject of how to really reap the benefits of influencer marketing for your brand, please do take a look at that via the link in the show notes or via our website. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by two amazing guests. We have one of our senior account managers, and influencer expert, Rhiannon Mason, and also content creator and influencer, Charlotte Anstey, who you'll probably recognise as a fashion oddity. So Charlotte,
hi.
Welcome to the podcast. Please do tell us a little bit about yourself and
thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I've been influencing on and off for as long as I can remember, but I've been an influencer here in Bristol for just over 3 years. I work in marketing as well, so it aligns really well, and I have an understanding of both sides in terms of what the brand really wants to get out of working with the influencers. And through my page, it started as purely fashion, but I've naturally moved into what's on in Bristol. I sort of see it as a little guide to what's fun to do in Bristol for late 20s, early 30s, child-free women, which is why the sort of fashion still sinks into it a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, love that. And it has been a pleasure working with you as well.
Thank you.
And Rhiannon, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Of course. So I am a senior account manager at Purplefish, as you know. I've been here for around 2 years. My role is quite diverse. I'm sure anyone who works in an agency recognises that. There's a lot going on, different clients, different workload, different briefs, different KPIs. So it keeps it quite fresh and exciting most of the time. So we've worked with you, Charlotte, a few times and various other influencers in Bristol, outside of Bristol. And
why is influencer marketing becoming such an integral part of the marketing mix?
Well, I think it's been around for a long time, actually. I think brands should have been doing it for years now, but a lot of brands are still sort of falling behind. It's not brand new, but it's that whole thing around people like to buy from people and people understand people. So it's really an authentic way for businesses to get their messaging across. We know advertising works, we know comms works, it does all work, but having those different touch points and different communication points is just another way to reach audiences. And in the sort of world of social media, people want that user-generated content. They want to see the real people using a product or a service. It sort of really helps, I think.
It's sort of a way to advertise that doesn't feel like advertising to the consumer.
Secret advertising. A few years ago it was definitely more secret, but it's definitely a good way of sort of especially if influencers are really connected to their audiences, then people are going to value what is being said, perhaps more than coming straight from the brand itself.
Well, it's an absolutely credible and really important part of the media relations and PR side of your communication strategy, I think. You know, people want PR coverage and editorial coverage because it's that earned media that people trust. And it's exactly the same with influencers. If you've got the right influencers who've got that credibility, you've immediately enhanced your reputation with an already captivated audience. So I think we can all see the value of influencer marketing and why so many brands are keen to collaborate. But Charlotte, as a content creator, what do you look for from brands when considering your latest partnership opportunities?
So the first thing I look for is this a brand that I would shop with or would attend an event with if this event if the invite hadn't landed in my inbox, because of what we just mentioned about it all being authentic and it all having to align right with the audiences as well, it's important to choose those influencers that are cautious of it matching up with their brand. If it's something you've previously spoken that like, oh, I don't really like X kind of food, and then next week you're at that cuisine's restaurant, is one example. So aside from the actual product, I look for strong communication, and I like to know from the offset what the brand's expectations of me are as well. I try not to just say, yes, cool, I'll be there, and then after I've already committed myself, understanding what the brand wants from the collaboration as well. So the more information in terms of the campaign and what the brand's trying to do with their influencer marketing I get from the beginning, I find the better as well. And that's when I sort of know the match is going to be right and we're both going to understand what's expected.
Yeah, that's something we've definitely learned, is sort of having some really in-depth, clear briefs for our influencers. So one, they know if it's right for them, because ultimately it's not going to work if it's not the right collaboration and your values don't align. So trying to be as clear and upfront, especially with expectations, what timing frames. People might go on holiday and not be able to post anymore, and then you're being chased every 5 minutes. So that's definitely something we've learned over the years, is sort of that clear and upfront communication. I think people value.
You do see examples in the marketplace, don't you, of kind of partnership saturation with certain influencers, and you're kind of thinking, what is this person actually standing for? Because 1 minute they're doing hair products and they're off doing some service, and it can be quite confusing, I think, for their followers as well, as probably the brands. But I mean, what from a brand point of view, Rianne, what does influencer success look like?
Well, I think it varies brand by brand. It's not one size fits all, like anything in marketing. It really does vary. And one thing that we always recommend for anyone that we're working with is you need to set out your goals from the start. You can't just say, oh, I like this influencer and I want to work with them. That's not going to work in the long term. You really need to understand what your company goals are and how your influencer campaign's going to fit into that. A lot of people just think of influencer marketing as B2C, which I think is the first mistake. B2B is just as important when it comes to influencer marketing. At the end of the day, you're selling people to people just as you are when you're selling to consumers. It doesn't matter if you're a brand. I think success varies on what you're looking for. We've, from personal experiences, done some really great influencer events, one of which, Charlotte, you attended. We worked with Yup, promoting their drone light shows, launching at the end of 2023. This is something that, people hadn't seen drone light shows before, and one of the challenges we had was, how can people promote an event if they've never seen it? Our sort of target here was to sell tickets and get people to know about the event. The influencers were really excited. They hadn't seen it themselves. So we overcame that by hosting an influencer and media event at the cricket ground in Bristol. It was an exclusive event, and, people got to see it firsthand. And then, as we were saying, using that sort of authenticity to actually share the news with their followers.
Brilliant, thank you. And I mean, from your experience, Charlotte, what are examples of partnerships that have worked really well, or equally elements or things when I suppose, what makes a partnership not work so well, not feel so sort of authentic for you?
So I've kind of got an example that answers both. Last summer, when Taylor Swift's Eras Tour came to the UK, a lot of different brands, probably too many to mention, chose to send a variety of influencers to the Eras Tour. And during those few months, we saw it work for some brands and it backfire for not just the brands, but for the influencers in other cases. So with some of them, they were sending influencers that weren't even fans of Taylor Swift to this highly desired tour that was really hard to get expensive tickets for, who didn't really know her songs, but even then you aren't sent by Taylor Swift, you're sent by maybe a makeup brand, a hair brand, or a fast fashion brand, and within their posts it was unclear as to like what the brand they were sent with. So it backfired there, but there were examples of that same idea and that same campaign working really well. So one example was a fashion influencer on TikTok and Instagram called Hannah Townsend, who has been very vocal with her followers about how much she loves Taylor Swift authentically and organically for years, and was posting during the Eras tour outfit ideas, or she'd been to the concert once on the first visit to the UK or something and posted about it beforehand. And then on another date for the tour, she was gifted tickets by, I think, Elf Cosmetics, and posted authentic Elf Get Ready With Me makeup videos for the tour with Elf products. It was clear who the brand were. It was clear how much she loved Taylor Swift, and it just aligned with her audience and her followers. So even when you do see a bad example, it doesn't mean it can't work.
Knowing your audience, and knowing your
getting the
influencer
right
is
influencer for the right event, isn't it?
Definitely.
I think that's where the planning comes in at the start. When you ask what success looks like, you need to really think about what your goal is, and you know who you're working with and what's going to align, or otherwise it can backfire, especially if you've got a big budget working with some big names.
So we saw this as well, didn't we? It's slightly historical, but I think it was really, really, got a huge amount of bad publicity at the time. But when Kendall Jenner, around the pandemic, did a collaboration with Pepsi, very insensitive around some quite major societal issues at the time. It kind of almost was suggesting that she was sort of saving the world with a can of Pepsi. It was not good for influencer or brand, and resulted in, the ad being dropped really quickly, Pepsi having to make a huge apology. I imagine it was a very expensive mistake for them to make.
I think that sort of shows the timing there as well. That collaboration could have worked at a different time, 6 months before. It could have landed really well. So I think it's that, you have to plan ahead, but while you're planning ahead, constantly checking, is that influencer still aligned with your values, and is it going to work in the broader context? No matter
how organised you are, it still is in a reactive world. It's still, you've still got to be able to change or edit something out, reacting to something else that's happened.
Well, actually, that's quite an interesting point, because a lot of influencing and a lot of content creators are always reacting and reflecting to trends, and actually that's usually when it lands most successfully, isn't it, when there's something that's going on in the world and someone's got an interesting perspective on that. You
have to be able to be quite dynamic and move quickly, because like you say, that's when you get some of the best results, isn't it? Spotting something and jumping on it.
Okay, so that's a little bit about what's going on in the world of influencing right now, but what about the future of influencing? Any bold predictions about what our clients and brands can expect for the future of influencing?
Well, I have seen something recently, which I'm sure other people have seen as well, or maybe not if you've not been on the internet, but AI influencers is something I've seen a lot of controversial conversation around. I think we'll be seeing more of them. There are already influencer agencies that are set up just to look after AI influencers, so that's already giving us an inkling that it's going to be quite popular at some point. I think it will be a long time before people or brands are comfortable using them, but I think some of the braver, more potentially forward-thinking, potentially controversial brands will and are already using them. I mean, you can get that AI influencer to say or do whatever you want it to. So
it's a bit of a crazy world, isn't it? I mean, I can't imagine getting particularly fresh perspectives from an AI influencer.
No, or it's not authentic, is it? It's not a person, but at the same time, these AI influencers have millions and millions of followers, and
are they real followers?
Well, that's another question. But I think
podcast.
Unfortunately, people don't always know their AI influencers. So there's one, and people were commenting, "I was just in this cafe and I didn't see you in there." The influencer wasn't in the cafe because the influencer doesn't exist. So Yeah, I think, more people will fall for it than others.
Fake news,
Fake
influencers.
Yeah. A little less tech forward than Rianne's example. I think we're going to see a lot more employee generated influencers and internal influencers. So one example of a brand who have been completely transformed by their use of this marketing technique was Sheerluxe, who are a sort of lifestyle.
Love their social.
Great, aren't they? A sort of lifestyle magazine that nobody had really heard of until about 2 or 3 years ago. And they have utilised their whole in-house team on their own Sheerluxe Instagram and TikTok. And now everyone's following them for those individual members of staff. You know their names. People are obsessed in the comments with like Sapna's style or Nana's nails that week. And now, they're one of the biggest lifestyle magazines on TikTok. It's just a great example of using your people to not only promote your brand, but using those people become influencers in their own right. And now the Sheerluxe account are getting invites or PR work or ads. So it's gone from just being internal influencers to help you promote yourself to they become influencers in their own right, which I think is really interesting to see how that's going to pan out.
I'm a huge advocate of this. I think that employees are such an important part of your reputation. And I don't know why brands sort of really seem to be a bit cautious around letting their employees loose on social media, and there's often lots of rules and things like that. But actually, your employees are going to talk about you whether you like it or not.
I think there's an old-fashioned sort of assumption around a fear around sort of, they're going to get headhunted, or if we put our employees out there, then they're going to get more famous.
But when brands do it well, they do it really well. ASOS have been brilliant with that as well. They have in-house influencers who can choose their clothes and use their own channels, and lots of them just do that as their job now because it's been so successful. But I think all brands can do that. Tap into the people that feel passionate about your industry, about what you do, about what you stand for, and give them some personal brand guidance and some support, and then let them loose, let them be your voice and build their own brand at the same time. Absolutely, I love that. Okay, right. Well, that takes us to our closing segment for today, which is our takeaway tips. So each episode, we're really keen to give our listeners a few actionable tips that they can take away and think about within their own marketing and communication space. So my question to you, Charlotte, for brands that are thinking about starting an influencer marketing, haven't perhaps dipped their toe in it yet, how would you recommend they get started?
So I think the first thing is organically building relationships with those influencers that are in your space. So whether you look local, so often in Bristol, it's about finding local Bristol content creators, for example, or finding people on TikTok that are cooking one specific thing, and they've often cooked a lot of cuisine if you're a hot sauce brand. And before you just send them a cold DM, follow them for a while, engage with their content for a while, and then when they see that DM, they might already be familiar with your brand. But once you've got your list together of influencers, I think it's all about how you communicate with them and being as clear as you can be. So influencers are now very, very savvy regarding gifted and paid. For influencer audiences, it's now a lot harder for it to be clear, and not through fault of influencers, but because the ASA guidelines require you to advertise everything, disclose everything as an ad, even if there was no contracted ad money payment. A lot of audiences assume everything was a paid ad. So influencers themselves are even more cautious of taking on work that has a brief if it's not being paid. Because rightly so, influencers do want payment for anything that is, a lot of their time and a lot of editing and a lot of planning. So if you just want to gift an influencer you really admire a product that you think they might really like and want to just mention or include in a video, make that clear to them that there is no pressure for them to post, and you just want them to enjoy the product and learn about the brand. And then you're more likely that you'll come across a TikTok video in a few weeks' time where they have used your product in their cooking video, for example. But if you want to work with them as an ongoing relationship, it's often better to reach out to them via email rather than DMs, I'd say. From the offset there, it's quite clear that you want to work together and you've got a clear brief and maybe a clear deadline. And then the understanding and the respect is going to be there both ways from the get-go.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are sort of a few starting points if you've never really done this before.
Brilliant.
Yeah, really helpful.
Thank you.
I would say do it. If you're a brand and you're not already, you know, as I mentioned earlier, it's not one size fits all. Whether you're a B2B brand, you're a huge consumer brand, you're a small business, you know, whoever you're selling to and whatever you're selling, there is usually a place for influencers in that. So do it, but don't rush it as well. As Charlotte mentioned, you know, that authenticity is key, understanding who your audience is and what you want to get from your influencer campaign. From that, you can then sort of set out a clear strategy of how you're going to get there. And I think one of the key things is, understanding your budget. What budget do you have to play with? And from that, you can then sort of start setting realistic goals, and then hopefully see some success.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you very much, both of you. Thank you so much, Charlotte. It's been an absolute pleasure to host you today. Thank you, Rhiannon.
Thank you, Luce.
So that brings us to the end of episode 1. We are going to do one more episode on influencer marketing. So the next episode we'll be bringing you with Purple POV. We're actually going to be joined by Six's business owner, Adam Denver, all around the launch of his hospitality venue within Bristol, and how he used influencers for that launch to help build awareness and excitement around his new hospitality brand. So that brings us to the end of episode 2 of Purple POV. Please do look out for future episodes. And if you are interested in delving a little bit deeper into the really intricate and exciting topic of influencer marketing, don't forget to download our white paper via the show notes, or you can download it via our website. I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you'd like to see more, please do subscribe, and you can look out for future episodes via Spotify, via Apple Music, or indeed YouTube. And if you'd like to hear more about Purplefish, please do follow us on Instagram, on LinkedIn, or you can sign up for our newsletter via our website.